Welcome back to Decentralounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified institutional bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships. Today, I'm joined by Mickey Hardy, founder and CEO of Arcadia Marketing and owner of Introduction.com. Mickey has built a reputation as one of the key operators behind the growth of some of the most recognizable brands in Web3, leading go-to-market strategy, influencer-driven campaigns, and narrative design for projects like WorldCoin, Shiba Inu, Aether, and others. Through Arcadia, he's focused on building high-performance growth systems engineered for scale, combining distribution, storytelling, and community activation to help projects break through in an increasingly crowded market. In parallel, through Introduction.com, Mickey has built a private network connecting founders, investors, and operators across Web3, AI, and frontier tech, facilitating high-leverage deal flow and strategic relationships across some of the top firms in the industry. Today, we'll talk about Mickey's journey into crypto, how he thinks about attention and narrative as core drivers of value in Web3, and what separates projects that break out from those that never quite reach escape velocity. Mickey, welcome to Decentralounge. So excited to have you here. Would love to just start off with your story and how you got involved in this crazy world of Web3.
Amazing. I mean, first of all, thank you very much, Ryan, for having me, and thank you very much, GlobalStake, for having Ryan on your team. You guys are truly lucky and blessed to have him, if I do say so myself. Okay, how did I get here? I think with any good story, you have to start at like the genesis, not the literal genesis, but the genesis of like where the entrepreneurial journey began. And for me, that was in Montessori school, and this is something that I know you, Ryan, are familiar with in terms of just like deeper education, higher learning, I guess you can say. And that completely rewrote my mind on how I thought about learning. I was able to dive into different subjects, follow what I was passionate about. And then that trend basically continued throughout my entire life. And so anytime I got really excited about something, I've always just dove deep. I have an insatiable curiosity, always asking questions. And I love just going towards whatever I have a proclivity towards. And so as I was coming up through school, through high school, it was always about what can I build that can somehow make money. I hated asking my parents for money. I hated trying to, like beg my dad for a couple bucks here and there. And so it was always just like, what can I do? And I learned very quickly that it's impossible to make money doing something that you don't like to do. And that became apparent and has still become apparent today for me anytime I do a side venture. But even more importantly, the best way to make money is simply for money to be a byproduct of the value that you provide. And so what does that look like to a high schooler? I mean, to a high schooler, that looked like flipping shoes, trading Pokemon cards, doing like literally whatever it could be, something that gave me that entrepreneurial dopamine hit. And then for whatever reason, I had a proclivity / calling towards copywriting. And I thought copywriting was really interesting. And the ability to storytell, I truly fundamentally believe is one of the most important and crucial skills, especially in a world of AI that we have on this planet. Being able to convince people to do certain things through the words that you tell them, like, oh my gosh, that's a superpower. And so I really got deep into copywriting, and I'm not good at English or didn't get great grades in it. And went to college and decided like, hey, I'm going to try this copywriting thing full time. Started doing some copywriting services for mom and pop shops, email marketing, SEO, paid ads, just very boring high level stuff. And got pulled into an internship for a crypto company. Crazy story. Just one of my buddies hit me up and offered. And all of my clients also started getting into crypto. And this was in the early 2020s when things were good, let's say it like that, with ZERP, no interest rates, and crypto was mooning. And so everyone was getting into crypto, Web2 companies. And so I was like, what if I just started a Web3 native copywriting agency? And there we did. And we were off to the races. And it became increasingly apparent that a lot of really technical founders, the guys with 180 IQ, can create amazing products. They can raise all the capital in the world, but the product is just as good as the people who use it. And you're not going to have any users unless you have a proper story. And so that spiraled into hiring a team of 30, working with some of the largest brands in the world, whether it's Polymarket, OKX, and more, because they understand the importance of story, of being able to convince people to do what you want through words. It's persuasion, it's manipulation, but not with a negative connotation. And I don't speak for them. I speak for myself. I should probably add that. And so, yeah, that's how we got here, man. That's the genesis.
Well, I know you've told this part of the story before, and I love this part of your narrative arc because you inherently took a risk and a big bet on yourself. Because at the time, that people don't realize that you're very, very young, right? And this is one of the things that I think I immediately was attracted to you, and just sort of that youthful vigor that you have. But it was readily apparent that you were going places, and you took a big bet on yourself because you started college, and you've told this story about how you worried you maybe were going to let down your family, and you quit. You left to build this business. So maybe walk us through what that was like, and sort of the early goings of building Arcadia Marketing into sort of, I would argue, maybe one of the behemoths in the industry today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am very lucky. I have entrepreneurial blood hard coded into my DNA from my granddad, who unfortunately just passed, but he was a school teacher, and he left pension and schooling to do the same thing. And it's just been risk appetite has been something that is in our blood. And when I was in college, I had my mom, she's an incredible entrepreneur woman, and she went to Harvard in 1999, and that's when she got her MBA. And that was when education was very different. That was the signal. It was like, Harvard MBA, like, oh my gosh, like, well, we're going to pay you $1 million straight out of school. And so that was her perception of what higher education was. And she was like, hey, you have to at least go. You have to go. You have to try it. And I was like, fine, Mom, I'll go. And then 3 months in, I was like, I'm out of here. I think that the deciding factor for me was when I was going to these classes, and I have nothing against higher education or college or anything, but I was learning about subjects from people who didn't have any actual experience themselves in the subject. I was learning about the economy from someone who wasn't an economist, hasn't run a business, and had honestly no merit telling me about it. And that really bothered me, because it was something where I was like, hey, if I really want to be a student, the best way to go and learn and see is to experience it firsthand. And I could only do that if I wasn't in school and if I was traveling. And so that was like the reason why I took that leap of faith.
No, incredible. And one of the things too that, I mean, Arcadia obviously started off, you said it was sort of a copywriting firm, like when you originally started, and you still do that. Storytelling, I think, is sort of always going to be the cornerstone of what you do. But let's talk more about some of the big clients and names that you've gotten to help bring to market. I think Arcadia now, as you said, has scaled to a team of 30. What is it? How has that transformed over the 5 years in this part of your journey when you started with this idea and have turned it into a full-fledged company?
Yeah. And the funniest part is, and sometimes I definitely get ahead of myself and a bit over my skis, is that anytime I focus on scaling the company or expanding or, profit or anything to do with metrics, things go awry. They don't work. The only times we scale, and the only times we get new clients, and the only times we are, quote, successful on paper, is when we are so focused on the product and the output that it is just absolutely apparent to clients that they are stupid for not hiring us. When I can get on a call and pitch them my expertise in copywriting, and I can just go into all the nitty gritty and the nuanced details about psychology and commas and perfection, I mean, I feel like they should be in a position where if they say no, that they just, the offer is too good to say no to. And so to answer your question on how we go from a small copywriting firm to this, it's just focusing on product. We've never done cold outreach. We've never run a paid ad. Everything has been word of mouth. And so it's literally just been, how many people can we make happy? And then we climb the way up the ladder that way.
When I also want to spend some time discussing introduction.com, I think this is sort of the newer entrant into your portfolio of services and companies, and a little bit of I guess, straight up shill. I'm a member of introduction.com, and I also co-lead the new Tampa chapter alongside Duke Kim from Securitize. And one of the things that as a member, I immediately realized was just the incredible power you're putting together. You're really cultivating a community. It reminds me a lot of my time in the classroom where you're trying to bring the best out of everybody and see what kind of value they're willing to share. And you've done such a great job. It's now like roughly 400 members. And so maybe take us through that journey as well, because originally it was something when I joined called GDM3. You had this complete rebranding, and explain maybe the philosophy of introduction.com, where it started a year ago, where it's going now, and would love to just share more of that with the audience.
Absolutely. So the beautiful thing about crypto is that it is a completely decentralized and democratized playing field. Anyone can come in regardless of a college degree, anything, and win. If you provide value, you will win. You will climb the ranks. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're wearing a hoodie and you got an afro or whatever. Like, you will win if you provide value. However, the same can't be said about Web 2 yet. And when we were looking at Arcadia, we look at what we do. We're very impact and purpose driven, and we can have the biggest impact when we work with the biggest companies, right? And so if that is the truth, if we think that the larger the company we work with basically allows us to have more impact, how do we do that? How do we work with the titans of finance? How do we work with Visa, JP Morgan, MasterCard? We are not going to get there wearing the hat as a Web3 digital marketing agency, right? And so when we retrospectively took a step back and we're like, where is this industry completely fragmented and broken? We decided that it was in the realm of physical and human connection. A very, very competitive industry, but with very little camaraderie, it seemed like, in crypto too. And so we basically were like, hey, what if we could create a high signal networking group that actually had true infrastructure, actually had a true experience, and genuinely made an impact on each member that joined? What would that look like? And we decided, like, hey, the handshake is the most powerful thing ever created in the history of humanity. Whether it was Caesar and Napoleon, whether it was Steve Jobs, whether it's Trump and Kim Jong-un, I don't care. Physical handshakes win. And so we're like, introduction, like, that is a great name. And so we went and we sought out that domain name. And then we're like, we need a community to start with. And so GTM3 was one of many communities that we acquired and rolled up and added members in that we thought were high value, kicked a lot out. So obviously, Ryan, you're someone who is amazing and made the cut, and just said, hey, look, let's bring in the top 1% of people, let them connect, let them have amazing dialogue, and let us sit back and observe the outcomes of these people connecting. And because we were just the ones facilitating it, we had amazing growth, amazing trajectory, amazing expansion. And now we're just doing stuff that we didn't even have on our roadmap before. So hopefully that explains, like, thesis of behind it.
It does. And one of the things that I want to give a shout out to, especially, are the curated dinners, right? That you guys do. And not only, and this, hats off to everybody else on the team, Erica, Avery, yourself, others that I haven't met, Max. And I think one of the things that you do is not only do you facilitate sort of those introductions within the Telegram group and the closed chat and constantly cultivate that community, but at the live events, you're very mindful of, okay, who is in this room? How can we put these people together? How can we make these literal physical introductions where, whether it's Avery or Erica or yourself grabbing people and bringing them together and saying, hey, so-and-so, meet so-and-so. And it's just so thoughtful. Just everything that seems that you guys do is very meditated, and it has a purpose and an end goal. And I think this is one of the things you do. And this really dovetails nicely into sort of the final thing I wanted to talk to you about today is, as a great writer yourself, I read a lot of your posts, whether they're on LinkedIn or on X, and I think you're really onto something about storytelling and about the human element in an age of AI. And I really wanted to kind of dig into this because I feel like this is a trend that's only going to continue as, AI continues to flourish, but we really need that human touch and that human voice. And I think this is something that you have been talking a lot about. So I would love for you to extol on these ideas that you've been unpacking in your writing, because I think they're really, really prescient and important in a day and age where AI is rapidly taking over writing and a lot of the cold outreach and some of the things that we feel might replace, human beings. But I think you make a great counter argument for why those things will never be replaced.
100%, man. 100%. Look, at the end of the day, the day has ended. That's what my mom says. But at the end of the day, we have something deeply biological in our bodies. We will always crave physical interaction. I don't care how many Apple goggles, whatever you have on, or how much Claude code or whatever. You are genetically programmed to seek interaction with other humans. So that's the first thing. We are just genetically predisposed to human interaction. Two, in my opinion, when everyone is using these LLMs, when everyone is going more digital, the value of the human connection also increases. So it's like the need for it and the value also increases. People are craving it more than ever, and then the value of it, the outcomes are more prominent than ever. And so when you look at those two things and you're like, hey, when you can bring the top 1% of the world into the same circle, allow them to engage in very intellectually stimulating dialogue, and then look at what comes after that, that's our thesis. That's what we are excited about. And we have done it, I think, in a decent job in IRL events and IRL communities, rooms of 50 to 60. But how do we become that infrastructure for all of humanity? I know I sound crazy talking, but it's true. How do you automate the handshake in a digital world? And that's the problem that we're trying to solve. Look at OpenAI. Look at Anthropic. They're all hiring events managers. And they're also all hiring software engineers. You think to yourself, why do they need software engineers? Because it's simple. The people who are the best at what they do are being higher demand than ever before. And if we can build a community around those types of individuals, then there truly is no limit.
How about other prognostications for the future? We always try and wind down the episode thinking about trends, things that are happening maybe in our industry and beyond. It's kind of curious to pick that young, talented brain of yours about where you see, our space going, or maybe the convergence of AI and crypto and a lot of other things that are kind of hot topics right now for between now and say maybe the end of the decade in 2030.
Yeah, so I think immediately, so I'll do one that's more like philosophical, and then I'll do one more that's like, here, I would invest my money here. The more philosophical one is that I think taste is the final moat. I truly do. Being able to curate something in a way that is not generated by an LLM, which, by the way, an LLM, all it is it's a probability predictor. It predicts the most likely outcome. And when has a good outcome ever been the most likely? Never. All the best outcomes in the world are contrarian, they're non-consensus. So having the ability to have taste and having the ability to curate something in a way that is, let's say, atypical or against the grain, I believe will be such a commodity, and people will make hundreds of billions of dollars thinking in that way. The second thing that I would say is like, this isn't somewhere, I mean, I do invest my money in this person, but I think that I feel so blessed to be able to share the same earth as Elon personally. I don't know if you saw yet. Did you see his stock comp package yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so I look at that, and I look at that as a trend in terms of the entrepreneur who is just so bold to go against the grain and create these ambitious goals for himself and just pushing humanity forward. I mean, it sounds very like rah and high level, but people forget things don't just happen. They don't just get built. They need audacious entrepreneurs. And I feel like that trend is kind of the pendulum swinging back to more risk, I believe. I think so. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sure people maybe or maybe not know this part of the story with Tesla in the early years, back in like I think 2008 or something like that, where they closed a financing round, I think on Christmas, not Eve,
Yep.
or something. Where literally they would have gone out of business if he did not close that last minute finance round. And here we are today in 2026, and Tesla, all the things it's doing with robotics and Optimus and everything else. So yeah, absolutely. Well, as they like to say in our space, and what a time to be alive, right? I mean, we're certainly witnessing so many incredible things. Well, I know we're coming up on the close of the episode, Mickey. People are obviously going to want to stay in touch with you, or maybe avail themselves of Arcadia marketing services, or maybe they want to potentially join introduction.com. What's the best place to reach out to you, to keep up with you? And we'll make sure we link all of those in the episode.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think my X is where I'm the most active. It's just x.com/Mickey Hardy. Same username on LinkedIn, same username on Telegram. But honestly, the best way to keep up with us is just to go to introduction.com and find the events that we're doing and come and say hello. A lot of our events are very curated. They're very bespoke. They're hard to get into. But then we also do happy hours that are available for everyone to sign up to. And if you're in one of the cities that we have a happy hour, that's the best way to experience what we're building. So would strongly recommend attending one of those.
As would I, because again, co-lead the Tampa.
Let's go, Tampa to the moon. Did they win last night? Did Tampa Bay Lightning?
I don't even know. I haven't even looked.
Okay, well, big hockey town. Hopefully, it's going well for you guys.
Yeah. They. I mean, we made it to the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. Although that third one, they were too gassed to ever win. That Avalanche team was a absolute destroyer. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, Mickey. Really appreciated your insights today. For those of you who are watching or listening to today's episode of Decentralounge, thank you for taking the time to have this journey with us. We'll be sure to link all of those socials so you can get in touch directly with Mickey on the YouTube video in particular. And until then, we look forward to having you on the next Decentralounge. Take care, everybody.